the first elevation item that it said, it was like, bring an industry related article, but use a succulent as your first one. And the succulent was $1 on Amazon. And it was like, oh, I hope our business will last and be as maintenance free as this succulent. I'm still going to try to get 15 minutes on your calendar. I did it with just 10 businesses, but I scheduled 2 meetings just from that one elevation. Then I dropped off the duck and I was like, hey, I hope you're not ducking my call. I'm still trying to earn that 15 minutes. And that one got me another 2 meetings. And then the third one was a classic scratcher ticket. So just, I hope you have better luck with the scratcher than I've had getting the 15 minutes on your calendar. Of those three elevation steps that we did, I got 7 meetings. Of those 7 meetings, three of them closed, and all of them closed in October. And these are larger companies. Welcome back to LA Legends, where Aflac pros sharpen their skills, swap stories, and build the LA South market one legend at a time. I am Michael Fisher.
And I'm Michelle Lee. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a conversation that every associate, district, and leader needs to hear as we head into July because July has a reputation. And I'm sure Michael would agree with this, right? Vacations, summer schedules, distractions such as the World Cup, right? People taking
Mhm.
their foot off the gas.
Yeah, and that's exactly why July is a moment that you can separate and utilize it as separation season to create massive opportunities. While other people are slowing down, the leaders, producers, you can do the exact opposite. Stay active, stay focused, and continue to start stacking those wins.
And we're going to put it around a theme, right? Especially as we head into our third quarter and massive September power weeks as well. There's a phrase that drivers use in Formula One. When it's time to attack, it's all gas, no brakes. So it's maximizing your commitment, maximizing your focus, and more importantly, maximizing your execution.
All right, and that's the exact mindset we are talking about today. Separating all gas, no brakes, and this is going to be a special, fast-paced episode. So let's dive right into this. So July is the halfway point of the year. A lot of people look at it as a slowdown, as we just talked about. So a couple of things. If you're just going to do a look back, Michelle, what are some of those things that you think people should look back just for the first half of this year that could help make July even better?
I think it's going as simple as checking the activity you did each week. How many weeks did you win, or how many weeks did you actually achieve that goal for yourself? And then being able to drive that consistency as well. How about you,
Okay.
Michael? I know this is a big part of you and I, like doing look back. So
Yeah, yeah. Always like to analyze. We're both nerds. We look at the data for sure. So that's a big one. But I actually was just reading a book. Shout out to Tim Worthy called "The Man Search for Meaning." And one huge takeaway I had from that book, it actually talked about live life today like you are living it a second time. Which means that if you can redo anything and let's actually just talk about the next 6 months so we don't get too, or last 6 months so we don't get too existential. What would you do differently knowing what you know now to help make those first 6 months of the year better? Would you have had better calendar execution? Would you have had a better plan of action? Would you have been using different tools, resources? Would you have stuck with some of your goal setting? Would you have maybe walked away from a meeting with a tangible next step instead of walking away with nothing? Those are a couple of those big ones that I like to ask myself to help inform myself of what I'm gonna do for the next, 6 months of the year.
yeah, I'm repeating what someone said in a previous podcast about getting better 1% each day. And how do
Yeah.
you do that? Is by doing something consistently, right? So you can get better at it. So let's actually talk tactical about separation season. What does that
Mhm.
actually mean? As we look forward, as we look back, right, previous 6 months to set ourselves up for the next 6 months. So tactical things associates can do differently to, going into next week, right? For that separation season.
Yeah, so a couple ones. I'd say control your calendar before the summer controls you. World Cup, man, I'll just tell you that one has taken me out. Now I've been with Aflac over 16 years, so this is my fourth World Cup, and I've been looking back at some of these, and I'm like, man, I've had some really amazing moments, but wow, if the U.S. happens to continue to do well, that sometimes could end up taking time away from certain things. So it's really about controlling your calendar so it doesn't completely control you. So a couple examples of that, it's actually just trying to find some offensive moments. And when I say offensive moments, it's when you look at your competition, other associates, other districts out there, when are you putting in prospecting hours that they're not? I'll give you two of my favorite ones. So during summers, my favorite thing to do was just take one person on my team and do they 4 a.m. to 7:30 prospecting hours at places like farms and the produce sections in downtown LA. Do I like getting up at 3 in the morning? No, but by 7 o'clock, if you can say, "Wow, I've hit 30 doors or 50 doors," you actually feel like a monster that can absolutely tackle anything. My other favorite one that you know, Michelle, is actually doing a prospecting block on a Saturday from 10 to 12 just to be like, "Wow, uh, I know nobody else is doing this," and you just feel better. It just makes you feel better about the weekend, doing that research, things like that. What about you? What are some separation moments?
It goes back to just the prep work, making sure whether you do it on a Friday for the following week, a Sunday before your Monday, spending the time to actually prep your lead so you know where you're going. You're doing the research beforehand and having someone to go with. It's very easy for someone to go, it's July, I've got vacation, so forth. Yeah, take your vacation. I'm not saying don't. You and I
Yeah,
both have stuff planned for July. It's going to be
100%.
crazy this month for us. But in the time that we have, identifying those open blocks and making the most of it, whether it's starting early because you've got to take care of stuff later in the day or doing it on weekend because you don't have a Friday. Those little things go a long way. And you said it's separating yourself when people are saying just taking it easy or, I'm not going to work the rest of the day kind of thing. If you plan for it on a Sunday before a Monday, a Friday before the following week, you'd be surprised how well you can actually go and execute.
Agreed.
This podcast is sponsored by Scope of Work. Do you want to close accounts? Do you want to actually have the best conditions possible? You want to make sure that you see new hires? Well, use Scope of Work. Recommended by many doctors and all Aflac agents in Los Angeles. Scope of Work.
So let's actually talk about July now, and let's talk about execution of July. So this is, I'd say the first step for all of us where we're not riding that roller coaster on a day-to-day basis. And, we're going into September Power Weeks with a huge pipeline and things filling up. What would be some of the steps that you would tell people that need to rebuild their pipeline that you would use?
So I think it's looking at building or refreshing a top 25.
Hmm.
Choose the ones that you wanna go after. Maybe identify a few of warm relationships that you can approach and have a conversation with. Maybe going back and looking back at the last 6 months where you had business owners that you didn't walk away of your decision maker conversation of a yes, no, or a second date, and let's go after those again because they said
Yep.
yes to the meeting, so let's figure out if those are the ones we can touch. Maybe some referrals as well, like digging in referrals from existing policyholders from other businesses that you have closed. Those are a couple of the ones, but I think re-looking at that list or continuing on that list as well, because I know there are quite a few people that have been out there prospecting heavy in June as well. So what are a couple of your, execution ones?
So a couple of them, because I got to go out with some of our San Diego team this week prospecting, and some of the easy ones. I mean, getting referral targets from business owners, CPAs, payroll companies, PEOs, HRs, chambers. These are just low hanging fruit that are just sitting there. 5 dream accounts? I mean, I'm only saying 5. I think we should do more than that, but what's a dream account? And I'm not talking about like, "Oh, I want Tesla or Rivian to be my client." I mean, those are cool, but I'm actually talking about ones that you can close right now. And for me, after being in this business for as long as I've had, my dream client has 30 employees in it. So identifying my 5 30-man groups that, I think that the business is kind of cool. I think the business owner is kind of cool. What are those dream clients and what am I going to do to make them say yes to me this quarter? So that's a couple on that building that pipeline, utilizing Zoom info to get the best data. But then the other one I'd say is actually running through a couple six-figure weeks in July. And what I mean by running through a couple six-figure weeks in July, it's doing the stuff that is required of you to do six-figure activities. So maybe that is doing a minimum of 50 in-person approaches on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Maybe that is also before doing that, actually practicing. Maybe at the end of the day, actually getting all of your follow-up emails, getting all of your research, getting your elevations prepped. So it's genuinely doing those kinds of things to get yourself rocking and rolling on that one. More than anything, it's actually just showing myself that in the month of July that I could have a huge, huge monster prospecting pipeline and a calendar that I could reflect on. So I want to turn to you for a second, Michelle. What are some things that you can do that during this time that also won't cause burnout?
I think actually creating, talking about that prep work outside of the leads, but actually, and you talked about this calendaring it and then just setting that goal and hitting that goal. I think because if you want to accomplish it, let's say if it's 50 doors Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that includes your elevations, not just picking up new, and you just stick to those non-negotiables. And it's 3 days, not necessarily 5 days. If you want to go 5 days, go after it, but also know that if you set your non-negotiables, knowing this is going back to when I was a district on your team, we had our Mondays that were non-negotiables, no meetings being ran. There were call blocks for follow-ups. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were field days. These are where you had to hit your goal. And then Friday coming back to play follow-up and then doing our coaching for closers. I think if you set a non-negotiable schedule and then go out and execute on some of those goals, that can prevent burnout because you can do that week after week.
Yeah,
We've seen it.
absolutely.
We've done it as a team. So I think something as simple as managing your calendar, with going back to what you said, right? The consistency of that goes a long way to preventing burnout.
Absolutely. And I would be remiss if I didn't actually talk about this for 1 second, but July is that moment of reevaluating what your real why is. That's where nobody actually wants to, you're not going to separate from everybody else and go and push yourself to the next level if you don't have that deeper underlying reason why you're doing this. And that's why if you have a strong why, and you push yourself for getting and understanding what that why is, it makes all these separation things so much easier. So let's talk about some prospecting strategies. I love leveraging different things for different times of the year. So let's talk about like a summer elevation check-in. So if we have let's say we have our dream 100 businesses that are in a focused geography that we know who the decision maker is, but we haven't, we know how many employees that they have. And they're focused, but we haven't got them into actually saying yes. Like you said earlier, Michelle, maybe it's the meeting that we scheduled that we didn't walk away with anything, so they didn't actually move forward with a real yes. Maybe, maybe these are ones that we weren't that brave and we just haven't done it. So during the summer, what are some of those things that we could try to do to amp up elevations and things like that?
I, I think, okay, my husband calls this the milk route. I don't know why, it's that you're going to
Yeah.
pick, like, I think a nice way to do this is to pick a route that you can stick to. And, previous podcast guests we've talked about is something that they like to, the lane they like to stay in, and so forth. So whether it is, going after just medical offices and staying in that lane or dental or restaurants, like pick an industry that you can kind of stick within and finding a way to turn it into a milk route so you consistently build it as well as one route. Or what about, being creative? Go back to you talking about elevations, right? And doing
Yeah.
that check-in. It is summer, 4th of July is just coming up as well, but there's a holiday every day. You can do things to make yourself stand out. And if it's one of those dream 100s that we keep bringing up, is it an elevation that you can spend a little bit more on as well? And I've used the
Mhm.
example in sales school of spending a little bit more for a Tonka paving truck on Amazon, right, or Target, and actually delivering that to business owner that you're trying to get. So one is having a milk route. Two is maybe spending a little bit more on some of those Dream 100s that have moved into, let's say, the fifth to eight approach as well. So what about
Yeah.
you? What are some things that you can bring while prospecting for this summer elevation?
Yeah, so I'll talk about a couple that I even was doing a year and a half ago. So it was early in AI. I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, hey, uh, I want to start a campaign on some larger clients. These had about 50 to 100 employees. And I was like, I want them to say yes to me no matter what by the end of this year. The first elevation item that it said, it was like, "Hey, so bring an industry related article, but use a succulent as your first one." And the succulent was like these like $1 on Amazon little succulents. Uh, and it was like, "Oh, I hope our business will last and be as maintenance free as this succulent. I'm still gonna try to get 15 minutes on your calendar." And that one alone, so I did it with just 10 businesses because I'm the busy region, all that stuff. But of those 10 businesses, I scheduled 2 meetings just from that one elevation. Then I stopped off the duck and I was like, "Hey, I hope you're not ducking my call. I'm still trying to earn that 15 minutes." And that one got me another 2 meetings. And then the third one was a classic scratcher ticket. So just, "Hey, I hope you have better luck with the scratcher than I've had getting the 15 minutes on your calendar." Of those 3 elevation steps that we did, I got 7 meetings. Of those 7 meetings, 3 of them closed, and all of them closed in October, and these are larger companies. So, if we're actually doing this the right way, leveraging ChatGPT and things like that to make sure our data is correct, making sure our, approach is correct, making sure all that stuff is there, it works like crazy. And I'm sure that we could do a lot better ones for the month of July. I mean, it's the 250th anniversary of our country. There's 4th of July, like you said. There's a ton of stuff going on. So we could have some fun with this.
It goes back to that Dream 100. I know a lot on our team have been putting out elevations, have been going out and consistently, I think, doing some, and that consistency. When we talk in Dream 100, it's a biweekly approach, right? You have your A, your B, and your follow through on that. Outside of the item, maybe doing something a bit flashy. How
Consistency and building out the calendar. We talk about this a lot, but when you're like actually buying like items and things like that, buy things that you don't want 50 or 100 of. That's the other thing. Like I felt like an asshole having a ton of succulents sitting around my office. So we ended up using them. And also, don't buy food because you'll end up eating it half the time. But other
true.
couple quick ones. This is just for fun, especially if you're trying to break out of a slump, right? So if you're trying to break out of a slump and you're like, I just want to have some confidence during the summer, here's a couple that we had always used in our regional office that always works. So having a focus day on medical and dental offices. On those ones, hey, does it require a little bit of money because you're probably going to be doing a lunch and learn? Absolutely. Are all the lunch and learns going to go well? No, they're not. But you can break out of it just by doing that. Other one, if you're working with like, if you actually do a day where you're like, hey guys, let's get out at 6:30 and let's hit up all the contractors, plumbing companies, all those guys. Again, helps break a slump. Also gets you doing something a little bit differently, separating from everybody else. I talked about the 4:30, 5 a.m. Produce companies. But one other one I just think is kind of fun is breaking out that old site seller, hitting up some auto body shops and just hard closing them. We call it the Adam Michaels Baltimore 187, which is the, hey, I need some money. I need to close some shit right now. I'm gonna bring this site seller. I'm gonna go door to door and I'm gonna point at it and saying, "Hey, what package do you want for these 3 people over here? Are those your 3 guys?" And knocking it out. And by the way, if you do that enough, you're going to get some yeses, and July is a perfect time to do that.
Every hero needs a sidekick. The site seller is yours, helping you ask the right questions, show the right numbers, and land the right solutions. Navigate conversations like a pro and turn every business owner into a believer.
July, we'll have a little bit of yellow time where it's non-prospecting. So what are some tools that we can reinforce. I mean, I know that we're trying to get adoption on Elevate Guide. We think that people should be building up their dream list using ChatGPT. So, can you talk through some of those things that can help people just level up their business during this period of time?
Two things that I think if you are working and you need to prep, one is actually using your Elevate guide, tracking your activities, setting your goal on a Monday of your, approaches for the week, your AP rent, your accounts is a huge part of it. Simple as that, right? And then the second thing is leveraging Zoom info. We have
Mm,
a training coming up, shout out for Zoom info, the partnership that HQ's brought in, but Zoom info training on the 8th, right? Leveraging a tool that's not just a lead generator for you, but a working tool to update contact information and set up where you're getting the actual person you need to talk to, not a key person, but the decision maker of the company, and going directly to the final decision maker to help drive, correct information in your prep work. And you can do that in your yellow time. Right? That's a
yeah,
tool for you to research within, as well as leveraging your AI. We've got some people that are so good at leveraging AI to manage their calendar, but also update their leads so they're actually asking for the right people. So, Elevate Guide, Zoom Info, and then leveraging a bit of AI to help you out. So,
absolutely. But I mean, Michelle, I think by the way, if you're listening to this, that means that you're at least remotely tech savvy. You need to start using it this daily because other people, your competition will be. So don't be the person that's like, oh no, I'm not gonna do this AI thing. It's a fad. No, AI is basically like a iPhone, where it changed the world when it came out. So using prompts like, "Hey, I want to close 15 business accounts with Aflac before August. What do I do? Give me a step-by-step plan. This is where I live. What businesses should I go after? Can you help me with my prospecting scripting? Can you help me?" These are all things that if I needed to close more businesses on the spot, what do I need to do? So these are those tools that I want us using, and I know that a couple people are going to really knock it out of the park.
let me ask you. So, leveraging AI to fine tune our prospecting list in the geography that we want to, how else can we leverage AI as, in the practice?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those that we see people doing it that are actually closing a lot of accounts right now. And then I know I give a shout out to the hot shots too because they're doing it where they actually are saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, I'm meeting with Michelle Lee. She's a HR director and business owner of Smith's Plumbing in Orange, California. Can you talk to me through and can you help role play with me what this decision maker conversation is going to look like? Be extra hard on me and give me some coaching at the end, and it will absolutely do that for you from a skill set perspective. That's number one. Number 2 is just if you're running a meeting or if you're going anywhere, you should upload your list and say, "Hey, can you clean up this list and tell me how I could get a competitive advantage on this stuff?" Each one of these are just huge ones that are just it makes your life a little bit easier. Back in our day, Michelle, way, way back, we used to have to Google things, and one of my favorite accounts I was in downtown LA that's no longer there, we were just doing a research block and we found out that, oh yeah, party stores, you remember this one probably. Like party stores, the biggest challenge that they're facing is the rising cost of helium because there's a finite amount of it. Being able to use that stupid thing and being like, "Hey, Mrs. Business Owner, I heard that like by the way, helium, is that a thing for you guys?" And then being like, "Oh yeah, actually helium, I have a helium hookup. Anyways, our business is doing great because of it. People wait outside of our," and being able to talk through some of those things with those business owners, with the assistance of ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff, it just makes you a more informed person when you're walking through it. And ultimately, business owners, they want to feel valued and cared about. And the fact that you do research on them, it matters a lot as you preach all the time.
You literally took the words out of my mouth, Michael, as you were speaking. Verbiage goes a long way. And I think leveraging your yellow time to prep for that. And you're using verbiage that's speaking to that business owner because that's what's on their mind. that's what's keeping them up at night. So some things to just really, like I said, elevate guide, leveraging AI is a huge part of it, and helping them, get you through some of those things, I think is important as well. So now we've talked a little about calendaring. We talked about, some prep time, some yellow time. Let's actually talk about goal setting. When it comes to, let's do a simple July goal framework. What should associate, put together, or, put pen to paper, write down for that kind of goal setting?
So a couple I'll just say right out of the gate. The first one is absolutely having a prospecting goal. So I have 4 weeks in the month of July. During that month, I'm gonna hit a minimum of 1,600 approaches, that could be in person, it could be over the phone, but 1,600 approaches in the month of July, that's gonna help me separate. Next one would be a production goal. I will write blank AP in July and writing that down. An account goal. I will open blank number of accounts. So I'll open 3 accounts. An activity goal, like I said, I will make 400 outreaches per week, or 300, whatever you end up doing at 50, just whatever you decide. One skill goal. So hey, I'm going to use and close with the scope of work agreement on every one of my employer conversations. Or I will improve my referral ask and quote my closing next steps. I will not walk out with in a meeting without a yes, no, or a second meeting. And then the last one I'm going to say is one accountability partner. Does it have to be your DSC? Does it have to be your RSC? Does it have to be Michelle Lee? No. It could be somebody at your house is saying, "Hey, I just want to report my progress to you every Friday of how many approaches I have," just so they know and you have a person that's doing it. It could be another associate, but if you are listening to this, I would text somebody right now and say, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to achieve in July," and do not leave July with vague intentions. Leave it with receipts. Let's do it. Let's knock it out of the park. So, all right, I'm gonna say this, Michelle. We don't want people to be like, "Yeah, I'm a different person altogether." We want them to be a more intentional version of themselves. So, what would you say are just the final, takeaways and what we should be focusing on here?
So first and foremost, remember we talked about that look back for 6 months. So July is just a quick reset, right? Resetting your intentions for the next 6 months, uh, compounding your activity as well as consistent block calendaring. You know, I think if you can actually look at your calendar and set your intentions about what you set your goals at, what do you need to accomplish each week to achieve those goals can go a long way. So a quick reset, an activity, like you said, a skill set that they can work on for the next month. Because once you have your that skill set goal, the 30-day challenge, right? We love doing those.
Yep.
So you have your AP, your activity, that counts you want to do. Now, what does that activity look like to hit that goal? And then what little bit of skill set you need to do every single day goes a long, long way. What about you? What are some of those, you know, final bullet points you want to make sure?
First one is just writing down that why of why you are gonna do this, and just knowing that Uh, it will actually pay off. So I just like to tell people that these are those moments that other people are resting, and if you are the one that actually is doing it all and giving it your all in this moment, it pays off in a very, very big way. That's the biggest one, and I'll tell you that outside of everything that we've talked about, having a couple of the intrinsic goals, and what I mean that is, or I'm sorry, extrinsic, you're still everybody on here, if you haven't already qualified for national convention, it's still in play. Figure it out. Ask ChatGPT and then do the work, because it won't do the work for you. The second one is President's Club. That one is still in play with everybody. And then the last one is just gonna be, I want everybody here to be able to dream again and say, "Hey, in this second half of the year, what am I gonna do and what is possible, if I give myself the very best out there?" And let's take one piece of advice from that, book that Tim Worthy recommended. Live the second half of this year like it is already your second life on it, and just be like, "Hey, what is the best version of this?" So play the tape out for the rest of this year, and imagine yourself getting to President's Club and doing what it takes to get there. So those are the biggest ones, I'll tell you all. And, for me, I'm just excited because I'm doing this exact same work. All right, Michelle. So this is it. I think we're going to close it out now. I'm turning it back to you.
So, I think a phrase that we say a lot is the work you do when no one else is looking. It's
Yeah.
not glamorous. It's
Yeah.
not, the showboat of, look at what I'm doing. It's when people are calling it a day, at the end of the day, what are you doing that's different? And what are you doing that's going to help you separate yourself? And then most of the time, it's doing the work that no one else is seeing. So it's usually a mom, as she put her kids to bed, prepping for her next day because she only has 6 hours instead of a full 8.
Yeah.
It's the little things that go
Absolutely.
a long way of elevation prep when you're watching TV, so the next day when you wake up, you go and execute, or starting at 4:30, or doing Saturday call blocks, so you're doing stuff that no one else is seeing, and that's making you stand out from the rest, right? Because the results will show from that as well, so
It does. It absolutely does.
So keeping it in our, Formula One theme, drivers who win the championship, right? Know that the moments when you have trust in the preparation, trust in the prospect, and more importantly, staying committed. All gas, no brakes, guys. It's not reckless, it's not chaotic, it's focused, it's intentional, it is consistent. So here's our challenge for everybody listening today. Increase your activity, protect your calendar, stay consistent, and also stack enough daily wins that July becomes a month that you change the trajectory for the rest of your year.
And yeah, success doesn't come from one great day. It comes from dozens of disciplined days put together and stacking those wins, like Michelle said.
Okay, thank you guys so much for joining the LA Legends. Now it's time to buckle up, hit the throttle, and make July the strongest month yet. We will see you guys next time on the LA Legends.